lot. It was actually about an eighth of an acre, and it was an $18,000 project, and we had a number of people working on it. It led to a lot of awareness about permaculture, a lot of workshops, and even some course curriculum changes. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of permaculture. I'm not going to be talking as long as I was supposed to, because I guess you want to enjoy the day, sort of the particular occasion that's happening here. But it is a very interesting topic. What is permaculture? To start off with, it's the way that nature produces food. You don't have cornfields, you don't have apple orchards, you have apple forests. Like in Eastern Asia, you have an apple tree associated with particular supporting plants to supply those apple trees with nutrients that help prevent the apples from getting attacked by pests, that attract pollinators to improve your fruit quality and your yields, and so forth and so forth. There are two main aspects of permaculture, two main tools that we use. One is compost. We all know what compost is. It's a nutrient-rich compound that's obtained by degrading, sort of plant waste and so forth, which provides nutrients, increases water retention in the soil, and so forth. The other thing that we use in permaculture a lot is something called the swale. It's an elongated ditch that's dug on contour. Dug on contour meaning that when water flows into this ditch, it neither favorably goes to the left or the right, it distributes itself evenly and goes into the water table. So what happens later on in the growing season is that plants above ground can access that water table and grow all through, as opposed to not having a swale there and having that water flow being lost to the ecosystem and degrading and eroding the soil. There are some other interesting aspects about permaculture that I'm just going to go through very quickly. There is companion planting. These are probably things that you might be doing already. The classic example is basil with tomato. Tomato provides the basil with particular nutrients that the basil can't get itself, and the basil has particular compounds that dissuade pest insects from attacking the tomato. You have these whole systems of plants that work together with each other. They're called guilds. They have various functions. They draw nutrients into the production system. They also take up space and prevent noxious weeds from growing, and so forth and so forth. Another thing about permaculture systems is that we generally don't fertilize them. We try to set up a system whereby the system fertilizes itself. One unique way of fertilizing a permaculture system and setting it up is to use cardboard. You can actually fertilize your permaculture garden with cardboard. How do you do that? By using something called the lasagna method. You put 2 to 3 inches of compost on your ground, you put a layer of cardboard which you wet, you put dry straw, and then you put wood chips. You wet that cardboard and you attract earthworms that eat that cardboard. They're attracted to the cellulose in the cardboard, and they emit humus, which helps fertilize your ground. And on top of that, the worms till the soil for you 3 to 5 times during the growing season. Another thing that we do in permaculture is we use perennial plant species as much as we can. Perennial plant species, of course, is the sort of thing that you plant once and they come up every year. They efficiently recycle their nutrients all through the growing season. They put their nutrients into the roots to survive the winter, and then they grow above ground using those nutrients that they stored in the winter in the roots. That gets translocated to the above ground growth. Another thing that we do is we try to use native species as much as we can. Species in this area would be Echinacea, black-eyed Susans. These are particularly adapted to the prevailing climatic regime, to the drought, to the pests, and all sorts of things. By using an abundance of perennial species, you eventually get these fungi called Mycorrhizae to attach to the roots. This allows perennial plant species to access particular nutrients that they normally wouldn't be able to get. These are powerful enzymes at the edge of these mycorrhizae tubular sort of filaments that sort of break down rock formations and liberate a lot of nutrients, which allows these perennial plant species to grow. So that's all great. It sounds very nice for, let's say, small production systems, small gardens. But what about using them, let's say, on a worldwide scale for larger systems? I'm just going to give you one example of where permaculture is being used. It's a huge project called the Green Wall. The goal in the sub-Saharan desert is to plant 200 million trees by the end of 2030. The trees that they're putting in are acacia trees. These particular trees are called pioneer species in permaculture because they resist predation. They resist being eaten by insects and animals. They're also very drought resistant. What happened is that the acacia trees draw in water deep and create humidity in the soil. This germinates roots, this germinates the seeds around in the soil, which have been dormant for maybe 60 to 100 years, and creates an arable land, which becomes agriculture. The goal of this project, which is being run by the United Nations, is to reclaim 100 million hectares of land, which will become agricultural viable and create 350,000 jobs, and also fix 250,000 million tons of carbon dioxide per year, which will lower climate change. Now, I'm just going to briefly tell you about two permaculture projects that I've been involved with in the last 2 years. One is the Hope and Cope Cancer Wellness Center of the Jewish General Hospital. This is a unique cancer center. They take patients that are undergoing, let's say, radiation therapy or chemotherapy, and they give them cooking classes, they give them yoga, they give them Tai Chi, they give them support. And, you know, a lot of these patients end up living longer. They're much happier, they're much more content. So this hospital saved my life a number of years ago. So what I've been doing is returning a favor. I've been putting in a therapeutic garden at the center. Therapeutic gardens have generally been found to get people that are in a sort of a disease affliction, to get their minds off their diseases, to increase their sort of moods, and to quite often live longer. So I've been putting in flower beds, herb beds, apple trees, and I've been putting a terrace design on an eroded hill and stabilizing that particular hill. The other project that I've been involved with is a project that Michelle, who has been organizing Garlic Day for the last month and a half, is involved with. This is the Sun Youth Garden in Park Extension. What they did is they took, let's say, a vacant lot that was filled with gravel. They put about 4 feet of topsoil on this particular piece of land, and they've been growing an assortment of vegetables with flowers. And last summer, for example, they produced over 2,000 pounds of vegetables, which was distributed to the poor in Park Extension. What I did was I took a lot of scrap wood and scrap pallets and created a trellis so they could grow beans and add to the production mix. So this is what I have to tell you about permaculture. I'm just going to say that one thing about permaculture is that in a system like you have with it, you'll have a huge diversity of plants, of herds, of particular vegetables that all support each other. And this helps you to develop a more diverse diet. The more diverse diet that you have that's plant-based, the better your health is going to be. What happens is that these vegetables and these fruits and these herbs give you a better, what they call, gut microbiome profile. This has been shown in studies in the last few years. The more beneficial gut bacteria that you have in your stomach, the better your health is going to be, the better your moods are going to be, you're going to be less depressed, and so forth. So what I'm going to conclude by telling you is that when you have a meal, try to make it sort of an adventure. Don't just take a salad, make it with cucumbers and tomatoes, add particular scallions, add other vegetables, add edible flowers to your, let's say, salad. Things like calendula and nasturtiums. These are filled with vitamin C and lutein. The more diverse, the more varied that you have your diet, the better it's going to be for you. I myself have been eating a lot more mushrooms the last few years. They have a lot of anti-cancer benefits. They've been also shown to grow brain cells, things like lion's mane and things like that. So make sure that when you come out of this, if you quit listening to me, go out, talk with the different vendors, see what they have, try something new, have an adventure, and you'll be much happier for it. I'd like to thank Michelle for inviting me to come. I'd like to thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much.